Hey makers, welcome back. Today I'm going to be using Simon Says stamp wrapped in his love card kit. It is a sold out item at the moment. However, you can go and purchase individual components if you wish to do so. So for myself, I am going to start off with creating a background scene. And in order to do that, I'll be utilizing Altenews Fresh Dye ink and utilizing their mini blending brushes. So here I'm just bringing the window frame over just to see how much of the cardstock I need to be blending my background with. And I'll be doing that back and forth a couple of times just to make sure where I'm at with the blending and if I am happy with where I'm at. And I'm just about finishing the inking portion. I'm just trying to find the right place for me to cut this out, and I decided to flip my image upside down because more of the blue sky, you can see it on the bottom portion, whereas the top portion was more white and more of the base cardstock color. We're gonna just cut through the whole thing and call it good for now. Alright, so I'm quite happy with the result of fussy cutting the background scene for my window. Now I'm gonna use the stamp and die that comes with the kit, and for this one I am going to use the Christmas tree labeled as C1 and C2. I am going to be using a generic stamping folder until I can get myself the true Misty. So I'm going to position my C1, and once again I'll be utilizing Altenew Fresh Dye ink in order to get my stamp colored in. And since this is my, I guess, brand new stamp, it's going to take a couple of stamping back and forth in order to get that full color transferred. Oh, the struggle of brand new stamp. It sticks to everything too well. So I'm just trying to position the tree and the pot with the Christmas tree that I stamped out. With that said, I think I'm quite pleased with the location for this stamp, or the second piece of the stamp. So I'm going to work one section at a time, starting with the pot, and it's brand new, like, once again, so I will have to stamp a couple more times in order to get the full picture. Now I'll be working on the star. And huzzah! We finished our first Christmas tree. With the second tree, I am keeping the star maple yellow the same because I really did like that color where it's a little bit darker yellow but not super dark. And since I'm using a different shade of green, I am 100% wiping down my my tree before I start utilizing a new color to this tree. Same thing as before, I'm gonna start with the bottom pot and then next work on the star. We are going to move on to tree number 3. Now onto the third tree. I am using 2 different shades of green because I kept on getting that spottiness on the tree. I decided to go with a darker shade first and then using the lighter shade of green. And as for the tree and the pot, they will remain the same because I like the darker color of the pot compared to my first tree. Now with the tree completed, I am going to do a final tree stamp, and this time I'm not gonna stamp double or triple times of the green. If there's a spotness that I have, I'm just gonna use that with my lighter shade of green just to see what it looks like at the end result. And with the help of editing, we have finished our die cutting of our Christmas tree as well. So the next step is I'm going to lay out my berries. And for this one, I'm trying to pull the color from the pattern paper. So I'm going with a black and gold for my berry. By the way, I totally forgot to hit record when I was applying the snow texture to the background. Regardless, we're going to move on to making our berries now. Our black and gold berries. And this is the last berry. Next, we are moving on to the bigger thing, the background and the window frame. I did end up switching out the nozzle tip from my first video to a fine tip, so I'm able to get glue throughout the narrow window frames. Lining up my frame to the background and giving that little good old tap 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 along the frame so that the glue could adhere to the background paper. With the main piece done, we are moving on to our next piece, which is adding on our berries to the leaves. Applying the last berry to the leaves. However, I totally forgot to add dimensions by applying color to the leaves and the poinsettias. I grabbed a couple of darker shades of green for the leaves, and here I'm just testing out what the color looked like starting from the stem area, because once I put everything together, glue everything down, most likely that's not gonna be seen. So after that, because I had these berries already attached to the leaf, I thought about just covering it, masking it with some poster tape, and I decided to color from there on out, but it wasn't as successful as I wanted because it gave such a crisp line that I wasn't getting a nice blend overall. So at the end of the day, I did eventually scrap this idea and went freestyle, and it turned out so much better. So here I'm using the Spellbinder cardstock, and just to point it out, the color that I'm using for the flower, it's not white. It is a color called Fog, and unfortunately it does look white from far away. But the point is, it's a fog color. And once again, I'm using Altenew's gray shades collection, and I started off with the darkest one because I just wanted to see how dark or how not dark it is once I start applying it. So I definitely did like the darkest shade of gray that I brought over with me, and I try to focus majority of it in the center because eventually I was gonna move on to a still dark but lighter shade than the one that I used. That way it's not just two-tone on the flower petals. So here we're gonna move on to the Fog cardstock from Spellbinder, and using the lightest shade I have with Altenew, and with that I'm going to center or focalize the center where I'm gonna have the majority of the ink I guess soak through, blend through the cardstock, and I'm gonna just so now we're gonna glue this flower together and put all the final pieces for this wreath that I'm gonna be putting on top of the curve of the window. The idea I had for the center of the flower was to put this ribbon on top, so it looked like the center of the flower, but at the same time it's more than just that. I'm just trying to position how I want the ribbon bow at the tail side of it to flare out without having to cover the green leaves that are on the far background. So I was still struggling with the position of the ribbon, so I decided to just flip it and have the greenery point towards the top. And I really liked it because I don't have to worry about the ribbon, and also I don't need to worry about covering the greenery from the flower. Before I decide to commit my life on the final say on the design of the branch, I decided to finagle with it as much as I can to find the perfect spot, meaning making sure their equal or symmetry is good looking, and the position of where the tree branches or the final leaves on these sides are. At least it's just a tiny little movement here and there, but at the end of the day, I still wanted to make sure it looks symmetrical and I will be satisfied with it because I wanted to show as much as the golden berries as I can without having them all covered up, but at the same time also showing the green leaf that's attached to the berry because of me spending that little time of providing the color and the shading. So I did ultimately come to a decision where I'm just gonna line it up and go from there with the help of the magnet. At the end, I decided to just F it and said, let's just line it up towards the edge of the frame so the hard work is out, and all I need to do is make sure I glue them down towards the edge and lining it up towards the edge. And that's what I ended up doing. Made my life so much easier. Honestly, with so many tweezers that I had, I felt like I was doing like an open heart surgery at this point. But yeah, I was using these reverse tweezers to clamp them down instead of using my magnets because it was like just for specific locations. I didn't have glue around the entirety of the foliage. So yeah, it was fun. Kind of like a mad scientist or mad surgeon. The side pieces all glued down nicely and making sure they are secured. It's time to move on to the centerpiece. And for the centerpiece, I'm just moving it around so that it lines up to cover the edges of the tree or the foliage and still having that center imagery. The Christmas trees, I was looking at what color or the depth of the green I want to go with, and ultimately I did go with the darker one because aesthetically for me it looked like it matched a lot better with the foliage arch that's on top of the window frame. Now it's time to just tape them down together, and here I decided to use Altenews foam tape to provide the elevation to the image. And here I also decided that I was gonna elevate the flower piece for the center so everything has some kind of dimension to it, so it's not just flat laying on the card. And now the final piece to add on to the card, the Christmas tree. For this one, I thought initially to just flat glue right onto the cardstock, but at the end I kind of decided to put it on the foam tape. And with the foam tape, I wasn't really using my brain at this time, so I decided to just attach the paper onto the foam tape and cut it around. And that was a big mistake. So lesson learned, don't do that next time because it involved a lot of cutting. With the tedious work of cutting this Christmas tree completed, it's now time to place this Christmas tree in the middle of our window frame. Right, and I totally forgot to add the foam on the top portion of the flower, so here I am adding the foam to the flower. With all the taping done, we are now moving back to our stamps to select a sentiment, and here we're going to decide which one to use. Since I didn't know which sentiment I was going to use, I placed every single one, ballparking it where I'm gonna place it, and there we have it. I decided to go with Merry Christmas sentiment, but even with the decision of going with Merry Christmas, I still had to figure out the position, like exact position of where I was gonna put this down. I still didn't figure out quite the location of where I want to put this sentiment, so I just decided to just stamp my life away and from there figure out where I was gonna go with it, because once I get it stamped and die cut it, then it will give me a better idea on where I want to place this. And at this moment, I decided to just clean off my stamp, my black pigment ink dye, and then go and try different colors as well. Since I was like, I'm already here, I'm already cleaning this stamp, let's try different colors to see which one I would like. For the second color, I decided to use Alta Nude's pigment ink called Antique Gold, and this was my first time using a pigmented ink under Alta Nude's brand. I was super happy with this ink pad because it was nicely juiced and it came out so pretty. For the third color, I went back to Alta Nude's Fresh Dye ink and picking out the color scheme from the pattern paper, I pulled out some of the gray line again, and with this one I had the idea of trying like an ombre of stamping. So the top portion I used for Mary one color, and for the bottom I went with another shade of gray. But at the end, the color scheme wise, I don't think it really gave the result that I wanted. So at the end of everything, this color scheme, this idea did not make the cut. Oh, the decisions. So first, I needed to figure out where I was going to place it. And the second problem to this was, which color am I going to select? But honestly, some of these ideas were super cute, so I was having really hard time finding the one that I want to use. Since I was struggling with the location of where I was going to put this, I swapped it out with different color and see if that's going to help. And it honestly at the end didn't really help that much because I had two favorite locations, which was on top of that ribbon. And the second idea was to center the sentiment and just call it good? Question mark? Finally, I found a position. So with that said, I brought back Alta Nude's foam tape to secure this down. First off, to give that elevation so it doesn't just stay flat onto the card. It gives some kind of characteristics with a little bit of wiggling here and there to position the sentiment. My front sentiment for this card is done. For the inside, I wanted to try out a new skill and new technique for myself, which was embossing powder on the vellum. And I'm super thankful for Simon Says stamp in this kit, giving me a full-size ink pad for the embossing. For the inside sentiment, I did go with praying your Christmas is wrapped in His love and grace. With my vellum placed down, I grabbed the anti-static powder, gave a little push so the powder comes through the brush, and gave a little couple of good swooshes. So before I inked the stamp, I decided to see if the position was good and good enough so that when I die cut around it, it will cut properly. So thank you, Simon Says Stamp, again for this full-size ink pad. Inside the kit, I did receive a Simon Says Stamp Detail Sparkle Embossing Powder. The first embossing stamp that I did, I goofed and didn't put anti-static powder. And this is the result when I just went for it. And it was very, very flat and mushy. And then this is my second one where I did utilize the anti-static powder. And the lines and the cursives are a little bit more crispier, sharp than the first one. So I'm just wiping off any of the anti-static powder residue that's left behind. I just ran my finger over it with the cloth to feel the texture of that, and it was very flat. Anyway, I'm going to die cut these two out. So looking at it, I felt like just having the white cardstock seemed way too simple, so I decided to use that same gold cardstock that was used to cut out the window frame for the front side of the cover. Since I had extra Christmas tree laying around, I decided to add that onto the inside of my card. With the Christmas tree glued down, the inside of the card is done. Yay! With the power of video edit, we have glued all of our pieces together, and now we're gonna use Positively Perfect Gold splatter medium that was newly released by Simon Says Stamp along with the card kit, and we are gonna splatter away this card. So I'm trying out different ways to splatter. So first I try to gather all the the splatter medium onto the paintbrush and then flick it off from the spatula, and I think for what I was aiming for, it did what I wanted, which was like very tiniest bit of gold splatter everywhere. If you haven't noticed, my window frame color is different. I die cut and placed the same die cut paper on top of it to mask away so that I don't get splatter on that pattern paper, along with the other that I wanted to prevent the splatter getting to it. Here's a close-up of all that tiny little splattering that was done. Yep, I think I'm quite happy with this card. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next video.